Dear family members and friends of First Lutheran Church, this morning I'd like to share an important update, one that will also be coming to you later this week in the form of an article for the June issue of First Word. This article is composed by the president of our congregation, Martin Hoyos, addressing the pressing questions, the issues surrounding First Lutheran and our reopening of our doors. A week ago today, on May 19th, our First Lutheran Advisory Team met for the first time. This team includes our First Lutheran pastors, staff directors, and a few physicians and nurses from within our congregation, who reviewed the most recent guidelines from the CDC, the federal government, the South Dakota Synod, and the ELCA church-wide office regarding safe practices during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the primary goal of this team is to develop a plan that minimizes the risk of infection for all who are on our First Lutheran campus. As one member wisely advised, let's be careful in our language to speak of each person being valuable and not simply vulnerable. Indeed, in this time of a pandemic, we must be mindful that what affects one directly affects everyone indirectly. Thus, the recommendations from the advisory team to our church council will be based upon evaluating a myriad of information with phases rather than arbitrarily setting a date for reopening. One of the documents that we drew upon is a strategic plan offered by our ELCA church-wide office in Chicago, which utilizes a three-phase approach for reopening. The advisory team determined that current conditions here in Sioux Falls meet the criteria for Phase 1, but if conditions continue to improve, Phase 2 activities may be possible in the near future. Phase 1 emphasizes a virtual worship and virtual education model. Speaking of which, First Lutheran is blessed by a very strong tradition of broadcasts and telecasts, the use of many forms of media, as well as having an outstanding media staff who make possible all of the online biblical studies, devotions, youth and family activities, our telecasts on Sundays, educational and pastoral connections on a daily basis. And I hope that you will use these materials. Now for two things. First, with regard to the document from Chicago, from our ELCA church-wide, you can go to their link, elca.org/public health, to read this well-crafted document, as well as another that I invite you to go on their website and read. Bishop Constanza Hagmeyer's very fine pastoral letter from this past Saturday, May 23rd. She offers here words of wisdom that are at once very biblically, theologically astute, and pastorally sensitive. And either one of these documents, from church-wide or from our synod, can be mailed to you upon request from our office. Now, as of today, community spread of the virus continues, albeit at a reduced rate. However, a peak in virus-related hospitalization is still projected for the first half of June by both medical experts at Avera as well as Sanford. Consequently, the advisory team recommended that in-person activities not continue in this latter half of May. We'll be reconvening on this coming Monday, June 1st, to consider the most up-to-date information regarding the local rate of infections, hospitalizations, recovering rates, availability of testing materials, and protocols for group gatherings. Again, we're seeking to the very best of our collective ability to avoid a scenario where in-person worship or activities on campus lead to the virus infecting multiple members or guests of the congregation, subsequent community spread, and thus the need to once again suspend in-person worship or ministry activities, which has already occurred in churches in other parts of the country because they've opened way too early. Be assured that the work of the advisory board is approached with a collective wisdom and love for our congregation as well as our neighbors and our guests, and will provide updates about the advisory team's recommendations and actions taken by the Church Council in response to the ever-changing conditions because of the nature of this COVID-19 pandemic. Please know, in the full assurance of Jesus Christ, that you are deeply loved and that your fellowship is deeply missed. Yes, we're all anxiously, prayerfully awaiting the day when the doors of First Lutheran are once again wide open. Let us pray. O Lord, grant us patient and grateful hearts that look to you for wisdom and to our neighbor who's in need. Yes, O Lord, you are a refuge and strength, a very present help in all times and in all places. Amen.